us on American History TV is Jongwoo, who is the founder and president of the Korean War Veterans Digital Memorial. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for inviting me. This is a great opportunity. Thank you.
What is the Korean War Veterans Digital Memorial?
As it says, it's a digital memorial. It's a combination of database that is composed of interviews and historical artifacts from the Korean War veterans who fought from 1950 to 53 in the Korean War. And so I do the interview of the Korean War veterans about their memories and their sacrifices. And also I collect the artifacts like photos that they actually took during the war and the letters that they wrote back to their families and other artifacts like promotion posters, maps, and private and public documents that related to their service. So it's a database of interviews and historical artifacts.
Well, take us back to the beginning. What inspired you, and how did you make the initial moves? What did you do first?
I do actually teach about the impact of information technology like the internet or online social media on elections, politics, and democracy. And the Syracuse University, where I teach, we had a very historical project working with one North Korean project supported by the American and Korean governments. And we actually were able to help them establish the digital library for the first time in North Korean history. And when I run the lecture series named after the Korean ambassador who actually founded the Korean embassy in 1948, I invited Korean War veterans in Syracuse, and they brought their own pictures that they took. And I was thinking how we can preserve this memory forever. There is a shortage of the spaces in the physical museum, but if we put it in the cyberspace, there is no limitations whatsoever for temporal and spatial limitation, no. So I began to propose then, why don't we build these cyber shrines of the Korean War veterans, which will permanently be there and can be accessible from anywhere, anytime, without much cost.
This database, this website, has an incredible amount of oral histories, too. What led you to begin starting to tape those histories of Korean War veterans?
Because their memories has not been really respected, and it's not been well preserved. So as a person and a scholar who knows about this, the strengths of the information technology, I wanted to preserve their memories forever. Because even though the Korean War was very important because it was the signaling of the Cold War that actually shaped every aspect of our lives, That Cold War divided whole world into communism and free democracy and capitalism. And that the Korean War was the beginning of it. But not many people pay attention to it. And people said it's a forgotten war. And the Korean War veterans, when they return from the Korean War, they've been asked, where have you been?
What's the typical age of, average age of a Korean War veteran?
83. So it's time to act on and collecting these interviews and artifacts. Otherwise, we're going to lose everything.
When you started this process, you asked a veteran, can I tell your story? Will you tell your story? What was the typical reaction?
Oh, I began to work with the Chapter 105, Syracuse Korean War Veterans Association. They unanimously support my decision and idea to preserve this memory in the cyberspace. So I'm getting tremendous support from the Korean War veterans and the Korean War Veterans Association. And I don't have any problem to arrange the interview. I'm just sure of the budget and the people who actually can do the interview. They really want to tell about what they did for the country.
How long do these interviews last, and where are you now? How many have you done so far?
It all depends on the Korean War veterans, but the average length is about 30 to 1 hour sometimes. And I have about 180 interviews, and I have more than 6,000 artifacts that stored in my database.
And looking at the website the other day myself, it's not just the Korean War veterans, but it's also some of the service members who served there in different decades, including one in the 70s and one in the 80s. Are you interested in hearing from those folks as well?
That's a very good question. First of all, the Korean War started June 25th of 1950, but the U.S. government extended up to the January 31st of 1955, even though the war ended in July 27th of 1953. So that's the Korean War veterans era. But since then, the U.S. forces has committed until now. There are more than 2 million U.S. forces that actually has served in Korea and retired. So I want to include them as a successor of the Korean War veterans. And it's a U.S. commitment. And it's the extension of the Korean War.
So you're still continuing doing the interviews?
Yes.
If folks watching this on American History TV want to reach out, veterans and others who would like to tell their story, how do they reach you?
Just check our website, my foundation's website, www.kwvdm, David and Mary, and it's a digitalmemorial.org. You will see lots of interviews and so many different kinds of artifacts. And the emphasis is, it's not the dramatic pictures like MacArthur, General MacArthur with his pipe and watching Incheon landing. No, it's not. But it's the picture and the scenes that regular American soldiers looked during the war. So it's their own eyes, and that's where my emphasis goes.
Well, that leads me to my next question. How do you think these interviews that you've done have led us to a better understanding of the Korean War?
As I told you, it's been regarded as a forgotten war. But because there are very good things came out of it. First of all, it's the Republic of Korea. They achieved, my own country achieved the simultaneous development of economic development, never been precedented. And we are one of the most subsidized democracies in Asia. So there are good things came out of it. And there are, I think, more things to be coming out of it. That's why my foundation is hosting the Korean War Veterans Legacy Project. And it's inviting the descendants of the Korean War veterans. And I urge them so that they can act on and continue to carry the torches of the Korean War veterans, sacrifice, and legacy.
What are some of the things you've learned from the veterans you've interviewed? And secondarily, is there a story or two that really stands out in your interviews?
Most of them, when I do interview, I'm asking, have you known about the Korea before, that you were dispatched to the Korea?
You mean, did you know about the country?
Yes.
Yeah.
And they didn't even know that where it was located. Now they are the arduous supporter of the Republic of Korea, and they're still looking for the reunification. So I think that is the backbone of this U.S.-Korea alliances that we are celebrating July 27th, the 6 years anniversary of the Korean War armistice and U.S.-Korea alliance.
Well, along that line, you said the average age was 83, so 60 years ago, 1953, in the signing of the armistice. Many of these men were in their early 20s.
Yes.
Do you find that the men you interview, the veterans, still have an active interest in what's going on in South Korea and North Korea?
Absolutely. As I told you, by the 1980s, Korea accomplished simultaneous development of economic development and democracy. So they now see what they did. The Korea, what it is now, is all their sacrifices, and obviously Korean people achieved it, but we couldn't do it without their sacrifice. So they support what we are doing in my foundation, and they think that, they agree to me that this is the most effective and most economical way and permanent way to protect their legacy.
I think you mentioned funding a little bit in terms of doing the interviews. What are some of the challenges when you go to do these interviews?
You may be surprised to hear this, but there are officially 2.1 million Korean War veterans.
In the United States?
In the United States, even though they were not in the Korean theater at the time. Federal government officially designated them as a Korean War veterans. Mm-hmm. But there are still many, many Korean War veterans who actually fought there. And I cannot do it by myself. And it requires a lot of financial kind of basis. So I want to see many who agree to this idea coming as a missionary of this foundation, go to the local village and find the Korean War veterans and do the interview like what I'm doing. And then we can expand it. And also I'm working with the descendants of the Korean War veterans in 20 participating countries in addition to the United States. And they may work with me to collecting more interviews and artifacts.
What other countries have significant